Siladitya, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ismail. Thanks for the opportunity. Glad to be here.
Looking forward to hearing your views on the current data trends. But before that, can you give us a brief about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'm Sil. I am a senior principal in the data and technology practice in Slalom. So just a quick thing of who Slalom are. So we are a purpose-led business and tech consulting firm. And the most unique thing that we do about it is anything that we do is very human-centric. So data, technology, process, business, we do with a human focus. That's who we are, and that's how we do all the projects with our different partners and organizations.
So in your experience with Slalom, you guys have been implementing data and AI projects hands-on with customers in the UK and around the world.
Yeah, so just like I said, like even though we are a global firm, my personal focus is being on UKI. So we work with a few partners of ours, and from strategy to implementation, we do lots of data and technology projects.
So in the last few years, the concept of a data mesh has gained a lot of traction. Could you explain to us, what is a data mesh and why is it so popular?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question, Ismail. So because we have been speaking to a lot of organizations in the past few years, like you said, and before, like you said, GenAI picked up the hype, data mesh used to be the next big thing. So yes, people want to get into a data mesh. Everyone thinks it's the silver bullet. So there are some partners of us who want to do data mesh because they think they have heard about it. They think it's a good thing. Some partners who have seen their peers do data mesh and they want to jump on the bandwagon. So yes, we do get a lot of questions on data mesh. So in a very simplistic way, it's like make data available for all and almost get the data divide. Like there should not be any data divide. So everyone should have access to the data. That's what the data mesh tries to accomplish. Whether they do it or not, that's probably an altogether different question.
Right, and it's supposed to be aligned to different business domains,
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, but domain-driven design's been around for a while. Is this really something new? What's different about it?
Yeah, we have been doing domain-driven design since the late 1990s, early 2000s.
Okay.
So if you think when you start with any problem or any business problem, because that's where we always start, we start with the problem that we need to solve rather than what technology we need to implement. That's our starting point. So things like your event storming, when you go and work with a partner, you sort of capture all the events, all the business processes, then you sort of put them into one big whiteboard. It used to be a physical whiteboard before COVID hit. Since then, it's being all virtual. But then, end of the day, you still put it on one big whiteboard. You sort of map all the business processes. Then you come to the attributes and design. So you almost capture the whole business process into different domains, so that everyone within the business, they speak the common language. So that when I say patient and you say care subject, we both mean the same thing. If you're talking about healthcare as an example. So that's what domain-driven design does. And then when you flip it to a data product, that's the next thing which the domain-driven design did not do. It's package it as a product and then sell it to the consumers. That's what the next trend is happening at the moment.
So you just mentioned data product. Is that different from a data mesh? What is it? And
it is not different from a data mesh. It is sort of a constituent to a data mesh.
Okay.
But then you
so
could
have
have
a part of
it.
Okay.
You could say it's a part of data mesh because to implement a data mesh, you need a data product.
Okay.
But then you could also have data product without implementing data mesh. So data mesh
Right.
could not live without data product, but then data product could live without data mesh.
Can you unpack that a little bit? When would you have this one and not that one?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll probably start with a simple example.
Sure.
How often in your life have you sort of said the term wish I knew? Wish I knew this existed, it could have made my life easy.
Yeah, a lot.
Exactly, yeah. So I was working with a partner of ours and we sort of created a nice dashboard. And then 6 months down the line when we worked with another department with the same partner, they wanted something similar. And we said did you know your colleagues had already done something similar that could be useful to you? And they said the same thing, wish I knew. So that's the question that data products tends to solve. So when you call a data product, there are a few things which are sort of features. So first thing is the discoverability. For something to exist, you have to know. So you have to make it available to everyone. It should be easily accessible so that everyone has gotten access and everyone knows what it means. We did touch upon the domain-driven design, so everyone speaks a common language. So you have a data product, you make it accessible to everyone. It should also give you some value and you should trust the data. So all these things are like a data product. It could be simple as a dashboard. It could be simple as an API. It could be simple as a microservice. So they all could be a data product. But for something as a dashboard to be called a data product, it should be accessible, discoverable, trustworthy, and something that gives value to you. because without a value, it doesn't make any sense to create a product.
So based on what you're saying, it seems like data mesh is a way of democratizing access and creation of data across the organization, whereas a data product doesn't require a data mesh necessarily. It's just building something that would be accessible, discoverable to other users. So you could build a data product while being a centralized team, or you could build a data product through a data mesh by being centralized. So they're related in the sense that the data mesh could allow the creation of data products bottom up instead of being, top down or centralized. But that's not necessarily a prerequisite for it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because you did mention one keyword called centralized.
Yeah.
So what data mesh does and what we have sort of been advocating to with our partners is like, yes, you need to have a central sort of a COE or a governance group, which sort of will set the rules. But then to create a data product, you should have like a hybrid model. So you enable people to create the data products, but you don't almost handhold them. You sort of give them the tools, the process, the means to create a product. In that way, you can sort of scale faster without being a single point bottleneck, which we have seen happen in some places.
Okay.
So probably move from a centralized to a hybrid model.
So it's a way of scaling out the creation of data products.
Yeah,
in a way.
exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So how have organizations been applying this concept of building a data product to their benefit?
That's a good question. Like, again, I will probably take the example that we sort of touched upon a bit earlier, like we call like a patient and a care subject. Again, when I used to work with a healthcare client of ours, like there were like different systems, applications spread all over. Some systems had sort of a unique ID called the patient ID, whereas others, they had a care subject ID. They meant the same thing. But because there was no way of knowing that they meant the same thing, there was no way of linking them up and creating sort of a dashboard that showed everything in one place. So we talked about the domain-driven design. That helps you to create that common language, create that sort of single version of truth that everyone can understand. That's like the step one. That helps organizations a lot. We did touch upon, when you talk about data products, we made it discoverable. For you to sort of create something new, you have to know what already exists, and if you can sort of reuse it, sort of use it to accelerate your journey, that helps your journey. So that's the two ways that we have seen, and again, the scalability, because now we are able to decouple a small use case, show the value, because gone are the days when people used to wait a year and a half to create a data warehousing project. You have to show value now, and it's like you show a value like then. So you can almost decouple your use case, create a product, show the value, like get the sponsors sort of all on board, and then scale it up. That's where we have seen it's building value. Like start small, fail fast, show the value, and then sort of scale it up quickly.
And what are some of the common challenges we see in organizations that are trying to implement data products, and what advice would you give them?
Like data governance probably ranks number one. Like it's always good to say that, yes, I want to sort of implement a data mesh. It's always good to say that, yes, I want to create a data product. But then the first question we ask our partners organization is like, do you know what you have? And the answer 9 out of 10 times is no. So creating a data catalog, whether it's a business catalog or a data catalog, even a simple SharePoint is better than having nothing. So you can obviously get a tool of the market, but having a simple SharePoint, if you have nothing, that's like step number one. And then having the roles and access, like who's the steward, who's going to govern the data owner, that sort of data governance and management, that's probably missing. And that's probably like step number one for any, whether you do a mesh or a product, that's probably step number one. And it's very funny to say that we always start a conversation with a data mesh, but we end up agreeing that, yes, I need data governance first before we can even go there. So I would say that's number one. And then once you do it, it's like no partner or organization of ours is like a clean green field. Like you always have some technical debt, some technology already in use. So it's always good to make use of things you already have, because you also have the people with skills. Like upskilling someone with a new tool might be difficult, whereas using the skill that they already have might be easier. So we always sort of nudge them towards that, like use the skills you have, build something that shows value, and then you can always scale it up.
So how do you square that circle? I mean, on the one hand, data governance is the main challenge for building out data products. On the other hand, we want to be able to iterate and fail fast and fail forward, like you were mentioning before, prove the value quickly. How would you advise organizations balance these two things?
I think that the way that we normally advise and how we work with the partners is like we start small. Like you probably take one department or a sub-department or maybe a business process. You do all the things that you just mentioned. show the value. Say, like if you sort of take a small department within a sort of organization and you show the value, like, okay, this dashboard used to take days, now it takes minutes. That's the value you show to them. And once you show the value, and then you can bring people on board, because end of the day, you have to like enhance the data culture of the whole organization. That's what you are aiming for. Because like every good thing, people, process, and technology, you can have the best technology if you have the money. You can always agree on the process, but then it's people who are going to make it happen. So that's where you need to have the data culture. So start small, showcase it, do the road shows and everything you need to bring the value in, so that you get more people on board journey, and then it becomes very easy to scale it up.
So really, the business value is the key for overcoming the governance challenges as well, not just the implementation challenges of the project itself.
Exactly, because like whenever you do when you start a data governance thing, you would always have some roles as data stewards and data owners. And if I come and tell you, Ismail, like that's a new role that now you're being given to, which means, okay, I have to now spend extra 4 hours of my day to do the job, you will obviously not be happy. But then if I can justify why you're going to spend the role is going to make everyone's life better, then you might be inclined to do it. So that's how we show the value to people. Like, this is what you do, and that's the value that it brings to you and the whole organization, and that's why we bring everybody on board.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think that showing the business value from the top line is definitely key here. But also, the other part of it is making sure that the use case is small enough or easy enough to implement. And a thought comes to mind that, it means that the success of these projects will depend a lot on how easy it is for each of these use cases to get out the door quick. And one way to reduce friction would be to use GenAI, for example, right? So what are the different ways that organizations could use GenAI to kind of help build out data products?
That's a very good question. You actually like meshed the two hype things that are going on the market, like GenAI and data products. So I think they're like, the way that I would probably split the question is like two halves. One is like, how would you use GenAI to implement a data product, and then probably using GenAI to build a data product. Like I said, like anything that we do in a product world has to have a value. So writing out the value proposition statement is probably one of the things that we have to do. And GenAI or something like ChatGPT makes our life very easy. We can easily do it with very less time. Second thing is, like, if you had to write a low code or a no code thing like that, that's very easy to do with the GenAI, so that you can get a sort of simple, quick code out of the door very easily. And then you can sort of see the value, always iterate and scale it up. That's the two ways we see them sort of GenAI bringing value to how you could accelerate your journey, data products. And just to give an example, like one of the things that we did with one of our clients in the US was Virgin Voyages. Now we all know that chatbots is something that's not new. It's been like for last 10 years maybe. But then the thing that we built with them is a chatbot that's empathetic to you, which means that it will respond to you as a user, how you're feeling. So if you're sad or like if you're happy, it would respond to you accordingly. And because it can then go and sort of go into its own knowledge database, the concerns of data privacy, all that do not exist, because it's not going to the wide world to get all the knowledge. It's always limited. So that's how we would use GenAI to build a data product that's actually very useful. So it could be as simple as a chatbot, but then the way that you sort of, and always like we have been using Alexa in our daily lives. So the way that Alexa responds and learns about you, that's a lot of GenAI in it. So that's the product most of us have been using without really realizing that's the product with GenAI.
So what about how GenAI can help with the people that are working on these projects? Can it enhance productivity somehow?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, simple thing like you getting the minutes out of the meeting could be done by a GenAI. Simple thing like you're getting all this, like coding, the basic coding done, that could be done with the GenAI. Like simple things like getting your infrastructure up and running if you're going for a low code or a infrastructure code thing, those things like which you probably spend some time doing it, those things can be now done to accelerate a journey. You don't spend so much time, so that your time to market becomes a lot less. So these are the sort of different ways that we have seen GenAI helping people, us developers and coders, to sort of bring value to our clients or to organizations much faster.
So that can accelerate things on maybe the internal side or on the engineering side. What about the customer success side? Is there a part to play for improving the customer experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, like when you talk of customer success, one thing that comes to my mind is sort of a master data management or customer 360. Now, we have all worked with our...
What is a customer 360?
Our customer 360 is like having the full view of your customer. So if you're a retail client, you would want to know all about your customer. If you are a healthcare, you would want to know all about your patient. It's the underlying same concept, but like from an industry term, we call it customer 360.
So it's like a unified profile of your
Exactly.
customer, patient, citizen, whatever.
Patient and citizen.
Okay.
And like one thing that we have built with AWS is the fan data platform. So because we worked with one of the Premier League clubs in Northwest, we saw there was like a lot of value in knowing the single view of the fan. Like, and because there were like different ticketing systems, and it was very difficult to know, like, okay, if I bought a ticket on system A and tomorrow I go to system B and buy a ticket, it's very difficult to merge them. Like, they didn't have the process. So what we did is like build an application that puts all the data in one place so that I know about you, Ismail, like, okay, I bought 4 tickets in a year, but then you might also take your son to a football coaching camp. How do I connect that data with this data? So that, which helps me to get the complete picture of you, probably as a household. Then you might be buying an insurance from someone else. Like, is it worth me selling something to you? Can I use the data? So yes, you can do it, but then to do it, you need to have the complete picture of me as a fan, like you said, a citizen or a customer or a patient. So that's something I think is really very good, and that's something where we have actually helped our partners and organizations.
So with this Fan 360 scenario, not only do you have the different data about each fan and the touch points that they've interacted with your brand, you also have their connections and relationships to other fans or potential fans, and together that surfaces new insights about that household, like you said, which is a relationship, or let's say a group of relationships together, which brings new customer experiences that you couldn't have done for an individual fan.
Absolutely. And I think what we have also done is we have taken a bit further and say, like, if I am a fan of a football club, I don't want to name any, sure, but then if I'm a fan of a football club and then I go for a Champions League match, say in Berlin, like, I would need to book my travel, I would need to book my hotel. And if I'm in Berlin from UK, I would probably spend a day doing a sightseeing. Can I sell that as a complete package? So those are things which will give you sort of additional revenues to like the football club. So it's not just the money you get from ticket, but the money you get from selling that whole package, from going for a Champions League match in some other places. That's where we see the value back to our partners and organizations of having that single view of a fan.
So the situations where you've built this, what was the actual business value that the organization that you worked with got, like for the fan data platform?
So for the fan data platform, like I mentioned, like they did not have a single view of the fan. So they had like individual systems and they got the individual information. So there was no way to connect or no way to know that whether you have bought 4 tickets in a year and you are only interested in going for a Champions League match, or you are only going for the home matches. There was no way of getting that information. So the value was like getting to know the fan, what he or she liked, which matches, and then simple things like, if I've given you my address while registering my account, I know where you're traveling from. I could also advise you on the travel. If there are like problems or roadblocks, something like, I can even advise you on the travel. There are accessibility issues. I can advise you on the right gate to enter the stadium. Things like that. Things could be very simple. It doesn't have to be a revenue generating, but it's all to enhance your experience when you come to a stadium. That's what they were aiming for.
Right. So it can either improve retention, or improve customer satisfaction, have more repeat purchases, for example, all of those different
like you said.
So you talked about a lot of different concepts today: data mesh, data products, customer 360. It's a lot. With the technology landscape evolving so rapidly, how do we stay up to date?
That's a very good question, Ismail. So the one thing that I try to follow in my own personal life is to be curious. So I try to read about the different technology things that are happening all over the world. But then I think one thing which we also advise our partners and organizations is like to be a business technologist, which means you have got one eye on the business, because that's your why. Why am I going to do a certain thing? That's your business problem. And then how you do it, that's the technology part. You always start with the why, and then you find out what are the different ways that this can be done in the most efficient way. So if you sort of try to be a business technologist, then you probably will be able to sort of keep abreast of all the things that are happening around you.
So I think that's a great way to go about it from a personal perspective. What about organizations? How can organizations as a whole, instead of just being bogged down by their business operations, keep ahead of the curve when it comes to technology?
That's a good question, Ismail. Like within Slalom, the organization I work for, we have got a framework called the modern culture of data. What it essentially means is, yes, we have got the business strategy. We always start with the business strategy because that's where every problem needs to be solved. That's where you define the problems. And then we talk about the small use cases, the big use cases. That's where we start. Then we sort of, once the business strategy is done, we then go on to the technology side of things. So the modern culture of data actually gives you the whole framework from business to the strategy to the implementation, whether it be the GenAI, the data governance, the data privacy, everything is covered there. So that's like one single package which we can offer to the clients. It's a framework, and then based on your needs, we can always flex the framework and make it suitable for you.
Right, and so the benefit of a framework is that they can make it a part of their business and hopefully a part of their culture so that they become business technologists, like you mentioned, by design.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this is a framework that's not being like framed today. I mean, it's been with Slalom for a few years, which means we have got many client stories, what's worked for them, what's not worked for them. We have always iterated the framework, and we can also share the stories that, okay, this problem looks similar to something we have done 2 years back. Even though it might be from the same industry, different industry, doesn't really matter. The problem could be similar, and that's where we can also help you. Like if that's worked good for them, it might be useful for you. Like maybe you have a thing. So it's not just a framework, but also loads of experience that we bring with it.
So bringing it all back together, if I was a CDO who just started in their organization and I have 60 to 90 days to make something happen, what would you advise the first few steps for me should be?
Good question again. So if you had only 60 to 90 days to do it, I would probably start with a holistic view of what are my immediate problems and what are my long-term goals. Once I have the list, then probably narrow it down to the 3 to 5 things that I need to achieve in the next 1 month, 2 months, 60 to 30 to 60 days. And again, like we said, start small, show the value, and then you can scale it up. So always start with a big list, maybe the long-term goals, I want to achieve this in 2 years' time, but then always have that eye on the short-term goal, and then always narrow down your use cases to 3 to 5, because if you have more than 5, you're probably not going to achieve it, or you're going to spread too thin. So have it small, focus on them, show the value, and then you can always scale it up.
Okay, so think big, start small, iterate. Great. Thank you so much, Siladitya. It was great having you.
Nice. It's a pleasure here. Thanks, Ismail.
Thank you.